If you are not aware, To All the Boys I Loved Before follows this girl named Jenny Han. Nope, that's the author's name. Who am I? Hello everybody, my name is Kelsey, and we're about to get very, very nerdy with some of my favorite romances of all time. I figured since it was February and I am trying to read mostly romance books this month, I should also give you a list of some of my favorite romances. And I'm pretty sure I've talked about every single one on this channel at some point, so I'm excited. Now, I'm sure I'm forgetting some on this list, but this is most of the books that I would consider like some of my favorite romances of all time, and there's quite a few here, so let's just get into it. This list would not nearly be complete without the first title on this, and that is Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. Are we surprised? So this is one of Jane Austen's, I would consider it her most famous novel of the six, and it's a love to hate. It's amazing. I love it. It's the reason I love Jane Austen. It's the reason I got into classics. It's just, I love it so much. Like, this is the reason I love hate to love romances. I would consider this the like OG hate to love. It's just so good. And if you like, you know, Victorian or Regency England period pieces, then like right here. The next one on this list is also a Jane Austen, and that is Persuasion. Oh, you cannot see this cover. Okay, let's see if I can try to make this work. This is one of her later books out of the six that she published, and I love this story so much. For those of you who do not know, Persuasion follows a girl named Anne Elliot, and she falls in love with this soldier well before this novel even starts. But she's persuaded by a family friend to not accept his hand in marriage because he doesn't have any money and therefore isn't going to be a good match. Well, this takes place like 7 years later, and he comes back into town, and he's all kinds of wealthy, and he's a captain now, and all kinds of shenanigans ensue, and it's just really good. And I like, my favorite thing that Jane Austen has ever written, I will say it again, I've said it a million times, is the letter that Captain Wentworth writes Anne at the end of this book. It's fantastic. Another one that kind of goes in with those two is Eligible by Curtis Sittenfeld. Now this I've talked about before. I think it was one of my favorite books of 2019. This is a modern day retelling of Pride and Prejudice. It is so good. A lot of the times the relationships in retellings between Darcy and Elizabeth, those two characters, are very complicated and hard to believe because of the twist that kind of happens at the end where they actually, like, Elizabeth does have feelings for him. And so this one, I think, did a good job of not making that as unbelievable. Like, it made it believable, that situation, and that she could actually fall for him, and that she might have liked him the entire time and she was just like suppressing feelings or, you know, whatever. But it made it seem more believable, and that's the biggest complaint that I have with most retellings of Pride and Prejudice, is that kind of switch at the end feels like a switch and doesn't feel like it was built up. I think that the author did a very good job of creating issues in this world and modern day issues that the characters could relate to. For example, like, class is kind of a thing, but they've just done it in a different way so that it feels believable and could actually happen and could be conflicts that would happen in today's world. So I just think this is probably my favorite retelling of Pride and Prejudice. This is my favorite Darcy I've read. I love this book so much. So if you like Jane Austen or you like the love to hate trope, check this one out because it's great and I really, really enjoyed it. The next one is one that I read a couple years ago, but like still have the fondest feelings for, and that is When Dimple Met Rishi by Sandhya Menon. Now, I believe this was her very first work. This is a very interesting take on people going to college. Now, this follows two characters, Dimple and Rishi, who are both from traditional Indian families. And so they believe in trying, maybe not necessarily arranged marriage, but trying to get someone that they think would be right for their daughter. And so Dimple goes off to this kind of IT college summer program right before she goes to college, and she thinks it's like her parents finally believing that she can like go and be her own person. However, the guy that her parents really want her to end up with is Rishi, and his parents send him to this college because she's there. And so he goes to this program knowing literally nothing about IT and app development and things like that. And so he knows that they're supposed to be together, but she doesn't know. I just loved it. I tabbed this book so much. I don't know if you can see all of the tabs, but I read this one totally on whim. I found the ebook from the library and I started reading it, and I was like, this book is good. And so I just devoured it, and it's just perfection. It's so good. I love the romance between the two. I think it's really well done. I think it's believable, which I think is one of the biggest problems that people have with romances, is if it's believable or not. And it's just so cute. Like, they're just cute. They're just cute. And I loved it. The next one is one that I also loved in 2018, but it did come out in 2017, and it was on a lot of people's radars, and I think a lot of people really, really enjoyed it. And I was one of those. And this was the first book that I've ever read by this author duo, so I was really excited to try them out. And that is Autobiography by Christina Lauren. Now, I will admit, I got suckered in by the cover, because the cover is just beautiful with this sunset, starry book. It was great. And then when I learned it was a male-male romance, I was like even more intrigued, and I freaking love this book. It was so good. It tackles a lot of hard topics, but it basically takes place in this town in Utah that is very Mormon, and like they don't like anybody who's anywhere on the LGBT spectrum. And it follows our main character Tanner, who is bi. And so he comes out before they move to this town, but when they move to this town, he kind of like stays in the closet just to protect himself. So his family knows, his best friend knows, but like not a lot of people know. And then his friend convinces him to join this novel writing class, and he starts to fall for the like TA or like teacher assistant person. The love story is amazing. I think it was written really, really well. I like the structure of this book. It was just so good. And this made me want to read like everything Christina Lauren has ever written. The next one I want to talk about is actually a series, but for me specifically the first one, and that is To All the Boys I Loved Before series, which is To All the Boys I Loved Before, P.S. I Still Love You, and Always and Forever Laura Jean. Now, I personally love the first one best. To All the Boys I Loved Before follows this girl named Laura Jean, who whenever she falls for someone, she writes them a letter and like packages it all up and hides it in a box, never to be sent. However, somehow those letters have gotten out, and it's just the repercussions of what happens. I think I just fell for these characters. And you can read this really, really quickly because of how it's written. Ginny Han has this as far as like the chapters are really, really short. There are 72 chapters in this book, and you can just fly through it so quickly. And I say the entire series and not just this book because there are things that don't get wrapped up in the first book that you do need the second one for. But I love the story. I love the fake dating to real dating trope. I loved the take on a very, very naive girl kind of learning about romance and what that means. This is a very simplistic story. It's very straightforward. It's a good guilty pleasure read for when you're just sitting down and like you don't need to think a lot about this. It does tackle some things, but most of it is just this cute romance between our main character and a boy. But it's just cute, and I love the relationship, and it just makes me happy. The next one is a new to me book because I read it in 2019, and it's one that like everybody and their brother have talked about, so obviously I must add it here as well. And that is Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. Now, this one is a new adult book about two boys, and it's beautiful. It basically follows the son of the president and the prince in England, like the second to the throne, and their kind of love-to-hate relationship. I will say that this is marketed kind of as a hate-to-love relationship. However, it's more of a hate-to-friendship really, really quickly, and then a friendship to love really, really quickly, and then a kind of the repercussions of that. And I really, really enjoyed it. It takes place mostly in the US, following US politics, so there is a little bit of political in this book, but I think it's written in a way that even people who don't like care about politics can understand and be invested in it really, really easily. It, I think, was very, very good. I think it was a beautiful story between two boys. I loved all of the representation in this because not only do you have a bisexual and a gay main character, you have a main character who is Latina. And it's just like there's a lot about this book that's just beautiful, and there was many a steamy scene in it, so watch out. But like, it just felt appropriate because I feel like I haven't seen many books that are in that like new adult area where the romance is not straight. And I think this is a very good representation of having a romance that is steamy and showing some of those scenes where the couple is not straight. And I think that it's very good, and I'm glad that this book is out there, and I think more should be like it, and I loved it. So definitely on this list. The next one is one that I read like 2 years ago, and I'm not even kidding you when I say I've read this in a day, and it was amazing. So good. And it's the reason I love this author. And that is Simon versus the Homo Sapiens Agenda by Becky Albertalli. This follows a boy named Simon who is discovering that he is gay, but isn't out to anybody. So he kind of strikes up this conversation with this blue character. He doesn't know who this person doesn't know who he is, but they kind of strike up this email correspondence, and they kind of think that like they've discovered that they're both gay, but they're not out to anybody but each other. And this boy that goes to the school, not blue, a third party, finds these emails and blackmails Simon into helping him get with one of Simon's friends. And so it's just all kinds of shenanigans is apparently the word of this video because there's a lot of shenanigans in here. This one was really popular because the movie adaptation Love, Simon came out in 2018, I want to say, and this is just perfection. It was a very, very simple story, but the romance is amazing, and like the blackmail stakes is very like, I liked this book so much I don't even know what to say about it. But it's just the relationship just makes me so happy, and like I didn't call it from the beginning, but that's who I wanted him to end up with, and he did, and it was beautiful, and I loved it, and I love Becky Albertalli's writing, and it's so good. Okay, I hope this was somewhat interesting for you. Those are I don't even know how many books that I consider my top romance books. I'm sure I will add many a book to this list, but those are the ones that I have right now. Let me know down below if you've read any of these books, if you loved any of these books, what are some of your favorite romances or favorite couples if you're not a big romance fan, but you do enjoy romance and like fantasy or something like that. Please let me know. I would love to broaden my horizon. So if you have more books that you think I would love, because I am super cheesy and I just love love, please let me know. But that is all I've got for you guys today. As always, if you like this video, make sure to give it a big thumbs up and subscribe down below if you want to be part of this awesome growing family. And I will see you guys in my next video.